Joining Edgewater Ranzel's presentation today on our offering around Oracle's Profitability and Cost Management Cloud Service, PCMCS, for manufacturers. This is a continuation of our Profitability and Cost Management webinar series focusing on PCMCS and all that you can do with the technology and platform. Today we're going to present an approach using PCMCS to develop standard cost labor rates in a manufacturing environment. We will also in our agenda cover an overview of Edgewater Ranzel, an overview of PCMCS for manufacturers, and our offering specifically, and the most important part will be a demonstration of our solution within the application. At the conclusion of the demonstration, we will have an opportunity to answer questions from you. So we'll definitely get on with our agenda today, and I'll introduce you now to our roster of speakers. I am Bart Starr. I'm Intellectual Property Program Manager. I've been with Ranzel for a few months now, taking on this role. IP generally refers to packaging all the goodness that happens here at Edgewater Ranzel. Today you're going to hear about what we're referring to as a starter kit for this solution and an offering around this solution for manufacturers. I bring with me most recently product development experience specifically on the applications of HPCM and PCMCS. But as you can see on the screen also, there's a long tenure around EPM and BI related subjects. But rest assured, in my career, I sat in your seats as practitioners also if you're playing that kind of a role. Doug, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning. My name is Doug Paul. I am the IP manager for profitability and cost management solutions here at Ranzel. I have over 25 years of experience in the subject area, performance management and cost management, activity-based costing related subjects. I've worked in a variety of environments. I've worked in industry, in finance or IT finance type roles. I've worked in consulting firms, doing project delivery, project management, and also worked in software firms directly in both pre- and post-sale consulting roles. And Tom, would you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Bart. Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Vargas. I'm the Principal Solutions Consultant for Edgewater Ranzel. Been with the organization just shy of 6 years, and I have over 20 years experience in all things Hyperion. Like Doug, I've worn many hats in my Hyperion-related career. I've been a customer 3 times over in the publishing, financial services, and in the apparel industry, owning the Hyperion portfolio and the processes and staff, as well as working in a consulting capacity for Hyperion software and one of the big 4, implementing the solutions, training clients, and leading the charge with best practices in budgeting, forecasting, costing, and reporting.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. I hope everyone sees the depth of our knowledge and experience, not just by those numbers, but by the range of business processes we've been involved with to help customers be successful. Because at the end of the day, that's what Ranzel's been all about. A nice history of 20-plus years and thousands of customers, multi-thousands of projects under the Hyperion umbrella, and obviously been an Oracle Platinum partner for a long, long time. Bringing a long, again, in that history, a long record of proven methodologies and approaches across various industries. Hands-on experience with on-premises, with cloud products. I think we're have the deepest roster of cloud implementations here for profitability and cost management for sure. And obviously all the glue and wiring that needs to happen from operational systems to ERP systems to include integration, data integration services, business workflow processes, and again, at the heart of the matter is keeping all the dimensionality and the records that underpin and anchor these systems clean and reconciled under master data. We do this through a set of services, from advisory services and roadmaps, health checks, construction services, traditional SI type services, project management, making the rubber hit the road. Technical services, bringing in folks that are adept in the technologies in the solution and in the architected solution, as well as managed services and all of the goodness of bringing all of that headache of technology off of your hands and into ours, as well as training. The concept I introduced before was intellectual property, and again today you'll be hearing specifically about a starter kit. What we're really doing is taking all this stuff that's on this slide and bringing it to bear in a jumpstart for you customers to get a quick return on investment, taking all the technology off your hand because it is a cloud-based service, and getting those answers to run your business that much quicker. I like to say we're all in around profitability and cost management. Not only did I just come aboard from Oracle with direct product application pedigree, but we've been in this space since inception. And you'll see a lot of firsts in here. First for replacing old legacy applications. First for implementations of allocation, new allocation approaches such as management ledger. We're even so close to product development, we've co-developed a solution for them around IT service costing. And today, again, you'll hear about a starter kit for manufacturers. I won't belabor the point, but we will continue this approach not only with PCM, with accelerators and starter kits, and again, different way of assessing and helping guide your path and roadmap around profitability and cost management. But we're going to do that across the entire EPM, BI, and big data landscape of technologies. You can get a lot of further, again, exposure to our depth of thought leadership with we continue with our webinar series here. We have a couple more left, and basically just want to remind you that you can go and register. The slides will be sent out. These links will work and go back to all this great knowledge on us for future events. We're speaking around industry events, articles in our blog, etc. And obviously everything social media and push through social media. So come find us there. If you don't know how, we'll contact us and we'll get you in that stream so you can get pushed the latest and greatest from Edgewater Renzo. With that, as you can tell, you've got presenting to you today various folks that love talking about profitability and cost management because, quite frankly, it's at the center of the universe and we like it there. It is one of the main factors for this operational framework for sort of your strategic performance reporting, planning and forecasting, as well as on the top there, your financial reporting and statutory reporting. And whether that's on premises with HPCM or in the cloud with PCMCS, we've got the knowledge to make this whole ecosystem work. And today we'll be focusing on PCMCS as it relates to your financial systems, the ledger, the ERP, and the related financial close process. With that, Doug?
Okay, thanks, Bart. Our remaining agenda topics are as follows. We're going to do a little bit of introduction into the topic itself and what we're really talking about with these cost rates. We'll look a little bit at the calculation process and what we're specifically referring to. We'll talk about the model flow in our starter kit solution. We'll have a demonstration of the solution, and after that, with the time remaining, we'll address the questions. So let's start with the basic question about standard cost rates and why they matter. Why is it important to improve this process of generating standard cost rates? So first of all, standard rates drive officially reported results, and their accuracy and timeliness drive decisions. So it's very important that we have process in place to make sure that we're doing this in an efficient way. Alternatively, standard rates drive price-volume mix analysis. So when there are variations between what actually occurred versus what was expected, the questions get asked about, was it due to a different cost versus expectation? Was it due to volumes being higher or lower than expected? Or was there a different mix of products that were produced or sold? That kind of analysis, that kind of understanding ties very closely into the nature of the rates that were used to calculate standard costs. Frequently, standard cost rates are adjusted only once per year. As such, they're not always very timely. And this can create unforeseen impacts to the P&L. So if you consider an overstated rate could result in a high WIP credit expense going into work in process inventory, that's going to potentially raise P&L, perhaps artificially. And then later on, when that material is sold, there's going to be an offset reduction in a higher cost of goods sold amount. And so there's this fluctuation, potential fluctuation of the P&L that you might want to avoid, and if you had the opportunity to adjust rates more often than annually, some of these effects could be mitigated. Another reason in terms of standard cost rate development and the improvement of it is benefiting and using operational drivers to allocate overhead and in creating the overhead rates. Having the ability and the flexibility to use a variety of different drivers that are more directionally accurate and getting overhead in its more proper place, making these rates more accurate, ties back to all of the prior points. Efficiency, this is a process that's frequently done once per year, partly because it's time consuming. If there were a way to make this process more efficient, maybe it could be done more often or at least consumes fewer resources to do it. And then there's the whole trail of visibility, accuracy, audit, and control. Standard rates, basis for standard cost, can be somewhat of a black box as to how, well, where did these rates come from? How are they developed? Are they meaningful? Are they understood? Can they be reviewed for control purposes? And finally, as we spoke a little bit before, these are part of the official reported results. So standard cost rates are important. And as you could be well aware, there's a lot of competition globally. There's a lot of pressure on profitability, and so proactively managing cost structures continues to be important. And it's important then to develop useful rates for labor and overhead standards. And the important word is useful. Useful in that it's meaningful, useful in that it's understandable, useful that it's developed in a timely manner. Because it all ultimately flows through inventory in some way. And what we find is that in spite of the investments that have been made historically in ERP or other types of costing solutions, it is still frequently an offline Excel-based exercise that's undertaken to update these standards and to feed product cost. So the question has to get asked, is the process manual or automated? Is it audible or not auditable? Is it prone to errors? Is it accurate? Is it time-consuming? Is it only done annually? So the answers to these questions are somewhat unfavorable, then it's worth evaluating and considering a solution like we're presenting today. So let's level set some terms and just consider the following. So inventory is typically broken up into these components as depicted in this sort of house-like structure. We have direct labor, which is the cost of production resources charged at their standard wage rate. We have direct overhead, which is the cost of direct labor resources above and beyond their direct hourly rate. This includes payroll taxes, health care, retirement, other fringe benefits. Then there's indirect overheads. That's the cost of production-related activity, but it's not directly related to manufacturing. So things like material handling, equipment setup, inspection, quality assurance, equipment maintenance and repair, utilities, factory management team, potentially certain IT costs, certain finance costs, certain HR costs, all comprise this overhead component. And then finally there's material. And material is what it sounds like is the cost of the purchase material that goes into inventory. In our solution today, we're going to be focusing on these three areas. And these colors we'll see carrying forward as we look at how this process works. So the Ranzel solution for PCMCS for manufacturers is a fixed scope, fixed price starter kit that will enable manufacturers to ease, streamline, and document the process of generating direct labor, direct overhead, and indirect overhead, cost per direct labor hour or cost per machine hour, depending on what's the applicable rate. And we'll do so by enabling users to quickly select cost centers and work centers that are applicable as sources and targets of allocation, as well as the drivers that are employed to do those allocations. In so doing, provide an efficient and timely method for generating standard rates that can be automated, that's documented, and that's controlled. The process enables the rate development process to occur more often than perhaps it currently does. That leads to better accuracy and reduced variances. And then leverages the power of PCMCS with many of the visualizations, the standard visualizations provided to do analysis and reporting for decision making. Different kinds of charts, graphics, kind of relating back to our picture. And we'll see in the demo, in the demonstration, examples. So let's talk a little bit about what comprises this calculation. So in our fixed price, fixed starter kit, we provide a general modeling framework producing these three outputs: direct labor dollars per hour, direct overhead dollars per hour, and indirect dollars per hour. And these rates, the hours, could be machine hours or they could be labor hours. And we use the work center concept where we allocate costs to work centers and generate the rates by work center. And we start with the notion that there are different kinds of cost centers, different kinds of direct cost centers, direct overhead, or indirect. So direct cost centers could be one-to-one. They could map one-to-one directly to one work center. So this cost center only does work in this production area. Or we can have direct cost centers that do provide direct labor, but they support multiple work centers. So we would allocate those kinds of cost centers on a driver like labor hours. Then we have direct overhead. Now direct overhead could be in its own cost center, benefits and utilities, and well, utilities is here, but benefits and insurance and other such things could be in its own cost center, or it could be in the direct cost centers themselves. Either way, we would allocate those out to work centers, typically on a volume type driver. And then finally, we have all the indirect. So we have utilities, plant management, quality assurance, inspection, those kinds of things we spoke of before, IT, HR, some of those costs. For those, we would use relevant drivers. We may use square footage, head count, number of workstations, could be utility type drivers, gas consumption, water consumption, steam consumption. However, whatever's relevant, we use the power of PCMCS to allocate to the applicable work center. And then we interact with the production system to get the projected number of hours, the labor hours or machine hours. So the production environment knows, based on the production plan, bill of materials, and routing, ultimately can derive what are the number of expected hours by work center. So we bring the costs by work center, we bring the hours by work center, and together we produce the three rates, and we would have it by work center. So the process sequentially is reasonably straightforward. We identify which cost center account combinations are in the different categories. We identify the applicable drivers that we would be using. We would allocate our projected costs for the year based on the work centers, the drivers, and the expenses. We would summarize them by the categories. We merge the number of hours by the work center costs, and that generates the rate that we would ultimately upload to an ERP that's used to ultimately create the actual standard cost. So on an ongoing basis, you'd have a pictorial something like this. You'd have actual costs flowing through. They may or may not charge out to a work center. But really then the heart of the production process is you have a production order. This is a typical ERP. It's not meant to be one specific, just a general depiction. They all vary a little bit. But the idea is that you have a production order which is essentially like your WIP. And based on actual quantity produced, based on bill of material and routing, it's going to produce and consume a certain amount of inventory, raw material inventory based on bill of material. And based on the number of hours, standard hours per unit, which is in the routings, times the actual quantity, that gets you the total hours, times our dollar per hour that we provide from the PCMCS, you get all of the costs on the work order, and then once production is complete, it settles to inventory, and now the inventory has the full value of our standard costs. Some ERPs may maintain the separation of inventory by these categories. In some cases, it may commingle them all into one. But now this inventory is now available. Either this item could be sold, and it's reduced the cost of goods sold at standard, or this could be an intermediate component that's used in a subsequent production order and consumed where the process repeats, and we would have rates for every applicable work center. So we look at PCMCS as a mechanism to do this, to produce this output. There are basically 4 phases of capability provided by PCMCS. So starting point is master data management, providing a mechanism to create and manage the dimensions and hierarchies and deploy the application. Then develop a model, which we create the points of view. And remember, our points of view now can support running this process multiple times per year. We create the relevant rule sets and rules, the allocation bases and the drivers, create the model views for analysis, sequencing. So we execute the model, load the data, load the driver data, the financial data, run the model, publish the results after validating them, and then ultimately producing visualizations and interactive analysis. And PCMCS is particularly useful in providing some standard visualization natively in the application. So now when we look at the overall flow, what we'll see in the demonstration is we'll see how PCMCS naturally provides a useful point-and-click method to do this process. So you can see, for example, here we have in this screenshot a series of manufacturing or indirect cost centers that aggregate to a parent, indirect, and we can allocate the indirects to work centers. So we have our source, indirect, our destination, our work centers, and then we have the driver basis, and we've chosen something here called indirect personnel split. This could be one of many. You can see a list here of all the different kinds of drivers potentially that are made available. And then once we have these costs allocated by work center, we can use a formula process to take the total and divide by the applicable hours to get the rate, the cost per hour rate. So in a moment, we'll go to the solution demonstration. I'll just want to give you just one little opening insight into it. So what you should expect to see, you'll see some visualizations of reports and analyses which provide insight into the results and how the rates were developed. We'll see how the allocations are done between cost center and work center. And then we'll also see a little bit of Smart View. Smart View, which is very familiar to the trade users, is also available to use with PCMCS to do other kinds of analysis and ad hoc capabilities. So what I'm now going to do is I'll turn over to Tom Vargas, and he's going to take you through the demonstration.
Great. Hello again, everyone. Thanks, Doug and Bart, for that great introduction and overview into our prepackaged accelerator. What you see on the screen is PCMCS enabled with our accelerator. For those that are familiar with Oracle's cloud-based products, it shares the same skin, quote-unquote, the same theme, same theme as other cloud-based offerings. I typically like to start these demonstrations more from a reporting perspective. Above and beyond being a costing and a rate calculation engine, PCMCS comes chock full of pre-built validation reports, pre-built dashboards, intelligence, and so forth to really help you review your data, validate your data, and help you go through the nuances of producing the right rates based on the allocations that were required from cost center to work center. You can view your data a number of different ways. You can view them via dashboards, which we'll see in a little bit, or some very focused reporting intelligence views, or even leveraging standard financial reports that we all know and love in the Hyperion world, or even taking advantage of SmartView. I'll cover all three of those areas. I'd like to first start off with dashboards. As you can see, I've already taken the liberty of defining a dashboard for you. This one is basically a summary dashboard of our standard cost rate results. Completely point-and-click enabled. You don't have to be a programmer or use a third-party tool. Dashboarding or flexible visualization is completely built into the PCMCS framework for you to see your standard rates by work center or your allocated costs by work center. Perhaps you may want to review some of your drivers, such as our labor hours by work center, or even cost distribution by work center as well. These are entirely customizable based on your end user or your PCMCS modeler's requirements. I can easily just click on the Create button, and notice here in our dashboard editing wizard, we have a number of different viewing mechanisms to just drag and drop inside our four-quadrant type of view. So it could be a line chart, a bar chart, a pie chart. I can drag any one of these, drag and drop it into one of my quadrants. I'll tell it to focus in on one of the predefined intelligence reports that I've defined already. I'll just choose the first one for now. We'll take a look at that in just a little bit. Give it a header name, and I'll choose which bars or which accounts, specifically the direct labor, direct overhead, and indirect overhead rates that I want to produce in my bar charts. Once I've set that up, I'll just save and close it. Of course, I have to give it a name. Now my sample dashboard. Let me edit it again to make sure that it's enabled. There it is. And within minutes, you can actually have a real-time dashboard directly off of the underlying database within inside PCMCS. Within a couple of minutes, you can have a fully populated dashboard that can be focused on some key areas that you want to help you drive your analysis. Now, if you saw me earlier, I pointed to what's called an intelligence or an analysis view. That's built into the intelligence capabilities within inside PCMCS. I often call these my quick and dirty reports. No different than, in many ways, very similar to SmartView. It just so happens to be on the web. So in this example, I may want to preview what my standard rate summary is by work center. I could just process this request, and you can see here are my work centers and the rates that I've produced by work center. I can export these to Excel if I choose to, or I can continue on analyzing my data. I may want to see my cost center to work center allocation. And again, quick snippets of data as you're validating your allocation flow step by step, rule by rule within the underlying model. What's really nice about these intelligence, these analysis views, I can reuse them in my dashboards, and I can also reuse them in some other visualizations built into the PCMCS in the form of a scatter chart, for example. And this is where I'm comparing direct and indirect total costs. Again, above and beyond seeing the data numerically, I can visualize it to see where the peaks and valleys are. And I can still interact with my data based on my point of view up on top. I often say if it's an EPM, Oracle Hyperion EPM product, the point of view is everywhere, and if you know your point of view, you pretty much master the solution in order to plot your data out numerically, plot your data out graphically, and being able to filter on your data to get more insight into your information. Some other ways you can visualize your data are KPIs, profit curves, and also traceability, where you can see your allocation flow step by step, and I'll just happen to choose my account structure. I'll make sure the account names as opposed to the account codes are being displayed, and I'll just run a visual trace map to show the overall traceability of just roughly 3.6 million in costs that were being allocated from cost center to work center in order to derive our rates. And I can trace forward and on based on our rule, and I can see the percentage contribution for each rule, and I can trace onward and onward, and at the same time interacting with my trace map in order to get to see more real estate in the screen. I mentioned earlier this is fully integrated with Hyperion Financial Reporting as well as SmartView. I've taken the liberty of building a standardized report. I'm going to highlight it and run it in HTML mode. Obviously, it also runs in PDF. So again, it's the same data source. So as long as you know what you're analyzing, you can evaluate your results cost center to work center. And in this example, I can see my allocated costs by work center as well as my derived results from a rate perspective. And then last but not least, what all finance and accounting folk gravitate towards, the power of Excel. Specifically, SmartView, our all-purpose add-in to all things Hyperion, whether it's cloud-based or on-premises. As you can see in my SmartView panel, I'm connected to my labor model, my accelerator, directly in SmartView. Here you can see our cost centers, our accounts. All I quickly need to do is just simply refresh. This is our cloud-based application. Our data is immediately available for us to continue on, drilling up, drilling down, pivoting, filtering. The same capabilities that we're accustomed to in SmartView are still available directly within PCMCS and the accelerator that Randell has devised. So far what we've done is taking you through a quick tour of the visualizations. We've seen, let me go back to the web, we've seen the dashboard, we've seen intelligence and the trace maps and the analysis views, reports, and even SmartView. And those are great tools in order to see our data, validate our data, and help communicate those results to perhaps any other stakeholders directly off of our accelerator, directly off of our PCMCS. The heart and soul behind PCMCS is the rule engine. So I'll quickly expand and focus in on our rules to give you insight into the rules that help not only allocate our data from cost center to work center, but also help us derive our results. Now, all of our rules are essentially individual rules that are categorized into what we call rule sets. And we've devised in our accelerator a number of different rule sets. Notice here that our rule sets and our methodology is focused in on a point of view, specifically in this example, FY16 budget. Now, to gain insight into how these rules are designed, I'm going to quickly focus our attention on several ones that we've designed for you. I'm going to select our direct cost center allocations rule set, and notice here when I'm selecting that rule set, these are the number of different rules that can be executed in parallel or in serial. Again, it all depends on your process. I'm going to quickly select an individual rule we're actually allocating from 2 specific cost centers to all the work centers using direct labor hours. So we can uniquely name what the rule is, but we can also add some additional color commentary to provide proper context to that individual rule. So in this example, when we're actually allocating the data, it's as simple as knowing where the data is coming from, where the data is going to in our destination, and what driver we're using in order to help make that allocation and that pro rata share. Our data is coming from 2 individual cost centers. We know that from the description. I want to highlight my cost center dimension, and notice on the bottom we're identifying in our source tab where the data is coming from, cost center 703 and cost center 708. So any costs associated with these 2 cost centers are being allocated to our work centers. And this specifically addresses total work centers or all work centers. The driver basis for these work centers, the data that exists for these work centers, is a driver called labor hours, as you can see on the bottom. That is essentially how the allocation works. We're basically taking advantage of the pro rata share of labor hours for an individual work center as a numerator, the total work centers as a denominator, again for labor hours, in order to fully populate, take advantage of the costs in those 2 direct cost centers that we've identified earlier to populate the results in our work centers. The method is basically the same throughout our solution. So I can jump forward to another rule where we're doing more of a one-to-one mapping. In this example, we're doing a one-to-one mapping between cost center 755 to the work centers, to a specific work center. Again, I'm highlighting my source. And my source cost center is cost center 755. I'm directly attributing that cost center to a corresponding work center called 7551. And the driver basis for that, as opposed to identifying a unique driver, is allocate evenly, meaning 100% of the costs in that cost center will go specifically to that one work center. Let's quickly focus our attention to the indirect side of the house. So I'm going to select another rule set, specifically a rule, our very first rule, where we're allocating all indirect cost centers costs based on indirect personnel split, with the exception of facilities and engineering, IT, and HR departments. So we're making a global assumption here in terms of allocating data using personnel split with some exceptions. How are those exceptions handled? Again, built into the same rules editor. We're grabbing our cost centers, and specifically all cost centers that are organized under this parent called indirect, with the exception of cost center 763, 768, 769. Facilities and engineering, IT, and HR. We're allocating them to total work center, and as indicated in our description, our driver is going to be indirect personnel split. So as you can see, each one of these rules pretty much follows the same exact process. The only that you can leverage drivers to allocate data. You can allocate evenly. You can do one-to-one attribution if you choose to. And I'll just show you a couple of more. I'm going to focus in on facilities and engineering, since that was an exception in the previous rule. How we're handling facilities and engineering is as follows. We're identifying the cost center for facilities and engineering, which is 763. We're allocating it to all total work centers, meaning all work centers, using a driver basis of square footage. HR would likely be headcount. So I'm going to skip over to HR. There's our HR department. Again, just like our previous model, it's being allocated to total work centers, utilizing headcount as the driver basis. So at the end of the day, utilizing this flexible, user-driven rules editor, taking advantage of our accelerator, you can model, you can take advantage of the pre-existing rules and rule sets that we've designed. You can refine them to uniquely align them with your unique requirements based on a specific point of view. You can calculate the model. Entirely. Notice here the processing range is all rules. Or one of my favorite features, you can actually specify a rule range. For example, I may want to run rule set number 1 through rule set number 3, and I want to skip over rule set number 4. Or perhaps I want to just run rule set number 1 and 2, and whatever rules are contained within those. Or alternatively, I may want to go step by step, rule by rule, as I'm validating my data step by step. Okay? Having that flexibility to calculate your data big bang, a subset, or at atomic level is very powerful if you want to understand and triage any issues. If you have any questions that may be coming from the line of business, you can allocate your data and come up with your new rates, whether it's for the production model or for perhaps in a what-if model. Again, mind you, this is point of view driven. There's nothing to stop you from copying the entire model from a budget into, let's say, a what-if scenario, making some small changes to the methodology, rerun that second what-if model, and then you can do a budget versus what-if comparison in order to get an understanding of what the new rates are depending on your needs. And then you can commit those changes back to the production model or continue on doing what-if analysis. The flexibility is there in our accelerator to take advantage of, as well as to evolve it even further over time. So it's a powerful point-and-click rules editor. It's built on Essbase, so there's a mature state-of-the-art engine that helps support it with the ability to select sources and targets at the parent level. It's a key component to enabling the rates building process to be run more frequently with more accuracy and with better documentation and control. So on that point, I'll quickly pass the baton back to Doug.
Okay.
If you're a presenter.
All right. Okay. So,
Yeah. This is Bart. Thanks, Doug and Tom. Tremendous drive-by there, showing off the power of not only the technology, but technology pointed with a purpose for standard rate development. Hopefully have folks in the audience that maybe are dealing with probably dealing with a lot of Excel spreadsheets. Can't imagine having to explain an Excel spreadsheet with all of those lines of sources of cost, destination of cost, and how did they get there, which driver did they use, let alone running what-if scenarios and things like that. So that's why we developed this. We wanted something a lot more elegant, for sure, and hopefully you saw that from the reporting and visualization all the way back through, the guts of how costs are developed from their source through to work centers, from cost centers to work centers, et cetera. With that, our notion here is really to deliver an offering to you. That offering includes, we always start our work with a PCMCS assessment workshop. We have a method to sit down for a day and and see where you are on the landscape of your PCM-related processes, your technologies, and help you, sort of derive that roadmap. So that's something is a table stake for us as far as an engagement model. We've done several of these already in the market, and we've gotten rave reviews. So we're throwing that in with our offer. It's just the way we deliver high-quality products and keep you, the customer, happy at the end of the day. So what we're going to do here in the cloud is actually set up the technology, PCMCS, set up users and security and all that provisioning stuff that needs to happen. We'll create a single point of view for you for our starter model. As Tom said, he likes to use the word accelerator. Think of the starter kit and accelerator as being synonymous because it does accelerate you. I think I like the adage, learn from the mistakes of others because you can't live long enough to make them all yourselves. And really, that's what we're providing here for you. We're bringing all that depth of experience, not just, as folks that are passionate about this technology and solution space, but really bringing back a lot of the knowledge from prior customers and all the different models we've built and all the different reports and analysis and et cetera. So, take this as a launch point. We would help you get data in, both financial and operational driver data, and build, a report and a view of that data and get you, that first step up. That's basically, think of that as our basic offering, our basic starter kit, to get you off the ground to this more elegant solution. We do have additional levels of the offering, but this is our basic, and sort of again get you to that even quicker return on investment and return, a quickness to answers as fast as possible. Doug?
Try.
Advance the slide one more time.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Technical difficulties. I'm glad it was in,
There we go.
at the end here. Yeah, so we've done a lot of sharing also here as your reference. We do have a solution sheet, and we do have some background information for you to take back to your organization on our blog around this subject matter, around the standard rate development process. So please go find that. We do have our overview solution sheet, and that's just not for the standard rate development process, but also one for the complementary PCMCS workshop. And as a reminder, if you are a current on-premises customer and you want to get to the cloud, we do have an offer there too, to get you to float to the cloud, get that analysis up there, whether it's related to this process in manufacturing, or if you're standing up something maybe for SKU level profitability, or standing up something for expense related allocations or things like that you find on your in an on-premises model. We can get you there. And Doug, if you advance one more, included in that offering also is, as we said, our table stake offering of PCMCS assessment workshop. Now, if you're just interested in the assessment workshop, we offer that also. So if you want to just sit down with us, again, engage with the expertise, derive this, where are you on the map, and where should I go from here, and prioritize, how we could help you prioritize your efforts. Again, that is a complimentary workshop from us. We sit down for a day and we deliver back results and discuss that road ahead around PCM and your PCM-related initiatives. Last thing I want to leave you with, some additional thought leadership. Senior Vice President Mike Lean did a nice article on putting the A back into FP&A, and it touches on a lot of different related subjects around PCM. and a lot of these concepts of doing your PCM process better, everything that's around those. And as you saw today, get rid of all that complexity in spreadsheets, or maybe you've made your ERP system do unwieldy things. Get that process into the right technologies, and make everything work more efficiently, not only for you as maybe someone who is in FP&A, but getting more transparent and visibility into any of the PCM-related processes, something that anyone who's an information consumer is looking to be part of too, and gives that credibility and adds to that usability that Doug was talking about way earlier in the presentation. So we have an article link here to share those thoughts from Mike Colleen. And now I think next slide, we can open it up to questions. Joy, I believe with the way to get questions to us is through the chat, and do we have any questions that are coming through yet?
Yep. First question here. Your ending point for allocations is the work center level. Can your solution go to, oh, hang on, I'm having a, can your solution go to the product level?
Yes, I'll take that. So the answer is yes. Since this is a cost and profitability allocation solution, product costing is possible. We do provide a placeholder for a product dimension. However, to perform that additional step, going to the product unit cost, you need to bring in more of the bill of material routing information, and that would need to be sourced. So that could be an additional part of a project. Other questions?
Give me 1 second. Okay, you seem to allocate directly to work centers from all of the source cost centers. What if there were a need to allocate from cost center to cost center first, such as with indirect overhead? Can that be done?
Yeah, so I'll answer that one too. Yeah, so in this example, that's what we did. So the starter kit solution attempts to keep the initial methodology somewhat basic in order to obtain results quickly, ease maintenance, but as suggested before, this is a flexible cost allocation application, so we can do many types of allocations, including waterfall, kind of hierarchy of cost center type flow, or even recursive cross-charging type arrangements between cost centers. That's another sort of step that we could take this in individual situations.
Okay, what kinds of simulation capabilities are there?
So the POV dimensions, I'll take that one. Well, the POV dimensions are year, scenario, and version, and data and rules can vary by different combinations of those dimensions. You copy results from a POV at the starting point. So what this does is it enables a wide variety of simulation possibilities. It could vary the year, but you could also vary your baseline budget with a what-if type scenario, or you can run the calculation multiple times per year, because we could have a placeholder for a January run, February run, etc. So there's a lot of flexibility leveraging the POV dimension and opportunities to vary rules and data.
Don't the major ERP solutions, such as Oracle EBS, provide capabilities to perform this task?
Okay, I'll take that one. To a degree, yes, cost management functionality that's available in EBS or other ERP could be leveraged for this. For some of it, maybe all of it. But experience shows, for whatever reason, that there are numerous cases where data, maybe it's not all in one place, drivers are elusive, maybe not all the capabilities of ERP have been enabled, maybe simulation capability is limited, but what we're finding is that the offline process does exist. And as such, it's those organizations to whom we think that this solution could be well suited.
Okay, those are all the questions. Unless you guys have anything else to add, we're coming up on the hour anyway, so we can bring closure to this. Anyone else have anything to add? Okay. Please visit our website where you can find recordings of past webinars. This one will be posted as well, and as well as other upcoming webinars on our website. You can email us at info@ranzel.com with any questions. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to our panel for providing us with your insight and expertise on this topic. This concludes today's webinar.